Hanse, good evening. I'm Chris Nachkate. Welcome to APTN National News. Thank you for joining us. The James Smith Cree Nation near Prince Albert, Saskatchewan says their funds are going under the microscope of the federal government. In a letter issued to band members on July 25th, Chief Kirby Constant said a forensic audit will be conducted by Indigenous Services Canada and the KPMG accounting firm, with the audit dating back to more than 7 years to April of 2018. Chief Constant says he welcomes the audit and hopes it will answer questions about a $1 million in federal funding that was supposed to come to the band from the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations during the COVID-19 pandemic. Chief Constant says James Smith was supposed to receive $6.5 million for protective equipment for band members, but only got $5.5 million from the FSIN, who are also undergoing a forensic audit. He says all official audit updates will be posted on the First Nations Facebook page to help prevent misinformation. Wildfires continue to wreak havoc across Saskatchewan, with some communities that have been evacuated for more than a month, and some evacuees having to leave the province in the process. APTN video journalist Rachel May spoke with two northern leaders who are calling on the provincial and federal governments to step up and help.
We have wildfires running rampant throughout our communities, outside our community borders, and so right across our Métis footprint, which is raising a lot of concerns because our traditional lands and resources and livelihoods are at stake.
Métis Nation Saskatchewan Northern Representative Brennan Morasti says frustrations are high in the northwest of the province. There are currently 55 wildfires burning in Saskatchewan, and 11 communities have been evacuated. MNS has issued a state of emergency for Northern Region 3 in northwest Saskatchewan, one of 12 regions the Métis Nation represents. It includes Lacrosse and 5 other communities currently under evacuation. Morasti says all levels of government need to come together to address the crisis.
People are well evacuated above 40 plus days. Frustrations are getting higher and higher, and it's concerning. And we'd like to trigger conversation by declaring a state of emergency with the province and the feds and talk about resources.
Those 6 communities are still waiting to return home. NDP MLA for Athabasca, Leroy LaLiberty, says the Sask Party's lack of wildfire planning has left northwest Saskatchewan in an unimaginable situation.
There was no plan in place for this fire season. You think that the government would have had something in place, seeing what had happened or took place over the previous years.
With hotels in major cities full, some evacuees are now leaving the province to find shelter.
Right now we have evacuees, and very thankful to the cities that have taken in our evacuees from the northwest. We have evacuees that made way to Cold Lake, Alberta, into Lloydminster, and also that of as far as Fort Saskatchewan.
LaLiberty says Northerners need their voices amplified to keep their communities safe.
I said from the beginning is that the federal government or the provincial government is forgetting that Northern Saskatchewan is a part of this province and that they're important. They matter and they belong.
Rachel May, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
Power outages in northern Manitoba have been impacting Wasagamak First Nation and St. Teresa Point in the Island Lake area for at least the past 2 days. The outages have impacted more than 1,100 people in those communities. In a Wednesday Facebook post, Wasagamak Chief Walter Harper said 2 outages were scheduled for Thursday morning and afternoon to clear brush under the transmission line between the 2 communities to prevent damage from potential wildfires. Manitoba Hydro's outage map showed an unplanned outage that began at 3 p.m. Thursday, impacting approximately 809 people. Wasagamak community member Jade Wood said in an audio recording sent to APTN Thursday afternoon that the power issues have been ongoing for the last couple weeks.
It was 2 weeks ago that the lights began to flicker, but it started so subtly that we didn't notice it at first. And when we did notice it, it would only be flickering for a moment, and then when we would look up to the light, it would be back to normal again. So we didn't think much of it. But it wasn't until a few days ago that the power turned off unexpectedly during work hours, and we were all nervous because we didn't know when it would come back on, and we had to use our emergency generators for those that have one. Because
we have part 2 of Dennis Ward's interview with Prime Minister Mark Carney. Stay with us, we'll be right back. Thank you for staying with us. Prime Minister Mark Carney made his way up to the Northwest Territories this week and made a stop in his hometown of Fort Smith before meeting with Inuit leaders in Inuvik on Thursday. Our Dennis Ward had a chance to go speak with the Prime Minister, and it's the first time APTN National News has done a one-on-one interview with Mark Carney. Here's the rest of that interview of the Prime Minister talking about potential resource development in Northern Canada.
Coming out of that meeting, an MOU between Alberta, Saskatchewan, Ontario, they want to see a pipeline from Alberta to Ontario. Manitoba didn't sign on to that.
I was going to say, last time I checked my,
Premier Wabkadu saying, that we haven't consulted with Indigenous peoples about this
Yeah,
yet.
yeah. I think that, this is an important point. And I tell you, Dennis, this is something that came up over and over in the election campaign. It's part of the reason why I'm careful about saying certain projects. Because Energy East is a name for a pipeline going across the country. It was a proposal of more than a decade ago. You're familiar with it. A number of people watching are familiar with it. And I get asked, are you going to support it? I'm like, well, it's not my decision. There's the provinces. There are the series of First Nations that would be affected by it. Then there's, who's going to buy the... There's lots of potential advantages to a project like that. But people have to be behind that. And part of the question is, if not that, what else might they be behind? And I'll give an example, if I may. And Premier Canoe, he said this publicly and had discussions with him yesterday about this. One of the things that he looks at, and again, this is about building the country, is what's called a coast-to-coast-to-coast energy corridor, which links from Manitoba through to BC, up through the Northwest Territories, Yukon, and a spur to Yukon, and then to Nunavut. And, and also does in a way, and this is, again, part of their thinking, Manitoba government's thinking, which I'm very supportive of, is in a way where there is Indigenous ownership from the start and at the core of the corporation that would help to build this. Now, I'm going to use that as a chance to make a point, which one of the signature elements of our approach, the federal government's approach on these nation-building projects has been, yes, aligned with the interests of Indigenous people. Great. It has to be much more than just being aligned. It has to be that there is large equity ownership in these projects. And one of the things we will do is to basically finance that equity ownership because we don't want to have a situation where something's in the interests of the rights holders or modern treaty groups in their interests, but they don't have the money to help make it happen. And that's part of the way we can help. But it always starts with what's in their interest and what do they want to do.
One specific project that comes up often is the Ring of Fire in Ontario, Northern Ontario. Premier Doug Ford willing to drive his own bulldozer up there. He says, I've been reporting on the Ring of Fire for almost 20 years now. I don't think it's any further along than it was back then. Multinational companies have died during that time over that project. You have 2 nations or so that are supportive of it, but you have about 7 or 9 that are around there now that have filed legal challenges against this legislation.
Yeah, look, I think there's a real lesson in some of these situations. I mean, in some cases it can be a specific project, and I'm not saying the Ring of Fire is a bad project, but in other cases it's been an attitude which says we'll move forward with a project at all costs, or even if everyone else isn't on side. That's not the attitude I take. I take the attitude of let's find the projects that people are getting behind. Let's make sure that they aren't just supportive of it, and it isn't just jobs at the time that whatever the project is being built. It's in ongoing jobs, but it's ongoing economic interests as true owners, and that's what's possible. Now there are models for the Ring of Fire that could work that way. There is not a model that doesn't work that way, to put it in the double negative if I can.
Right.
The federal government won't be involved if it's not working that way. If it doesn't have the support, doesn't have the equity ownership. And look, let's see what's possible on those terms, and then we can see things move forward, or whether or not things move forward. I don't think things are going to move forward. In fact, they're not, certainly with the federal government. They're not going to move forward unless they have those elements.
Are you concerned that this is just one legal challenge? Are you concerned that once these projects are made public, that financing starts going into them, that they'll be met with further lawsuits or blockades?
Look, again, it's a question of who you have behind. If you're building out an energy corridor, energy and trade corridor to Grays Bay Point, it's on my mind because of where we are. If we're doing that, then you've got to have lined up that support for it.
Right.
Now, who's going to challenge it? If you have the support of those who are affected. I mean, yes, somebody, people can always launch lawsuits, but the question is, do you have the positive support? And Dennis, I'm going to emphasize this. This is an enormous vista that we've got here. It is an absolutely enormous country with tremendous potential and opportunities. We have done too little, not too much. And what I hear directly from rights holders, directly from chiefs across the country, is a bunch of great ideas.
Right.
Okay? We haven't even started the consultation process about which projects are. But I'm aware of, and we're aware of, huge potential. My job, the job of the premiers, the job of others, is to convert those great ideas as part of a process to making decisions after extensive consultations that these are the potential projects of national interest, and then to go from that to attach the right conditions around the development of those projects. And including environmental, local services and economic benefits, ownership conditions, other elements, attach those conditions, labor conditions as well, so those projects can be built. And that process goes forward. One thing we're committed to as the federal government, the new federal government, is we will do our work in a timely way. When those conditions start to come together, we're not going to be the one that delays the thing for 10 or 15 years. I'm afraid we have been the ones that have delayed good ideas for 10 or 15 years. And that's part of what we're going to stop.
Any of those ones that were delayed for 10 and 15 years come to mind that you'd like to resurrect?
I'm giving you the same answer, but that's because it's the part of the approach. It's for others to advocate and support. Because if it's not, the federal government is not pulling projects. We're not trying to create projects. We're not trying to push certain ideas and priorities. But what we're going to do is we're going to accelerate and reinforce and support those projects that really do have support. And, it's interesting. I mean, you've asked on a variety of things, but sometimes this whole thing gets reduced down to pipelines.
Yeah.
No, we're talking about, yes, pipelines. But ports. We're talking about green energy. We're talking about carbon capture. We're talking potentially about data centers and artificial intelligence. We're talking about, in Northwest Territories, right here, one of the nation building projects, potentially, and the Premier's been an advocate for this. And again, the Premier is being very careful, and others are being very careful to see whether there is the support of the rights holders, but is Mackenzie Valley Highway to Norman Wells, which actually brings economic benefit. It brings direct social benefit, I can put it that way. And, it can help with our national security as well. So it's a wide range of potential projects. And that's what's exciting about it. We won't be able to do everything, to state the obvious, and or at least not everything immediately. So we're setting up a process where things are positively advocated, they've got support, and then we get behind them and move them forward.
Here's a project that was pitched by the national chief, and that was closing the infrastructure gap for First Nations. 600 plus billion, hundreds, thousands of jobs could go into that. Is that in the national interest?
It's certainly a response. I'd reframe it. It's a responsibility. It's a responsibility to provide health, social services, to have the infrastructure across this country at comparable levels. That's a different. That is a different set of responsibilities, different set of processes for that.
Mr. Prime Minister, I'm being told we got to wrap up. We didn't even make it to our bench. Maybe one day we'll sit on it.
Someday we'll make it to the bench. I see these good people down there, though. But
I'll
thank
let
you,
go
Dennis.
meet them. Thanks so much for your time.
A real
Appreciate
pleasure.
it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
We have more news after the break. Stick around. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. Powwow season is in full swing, and Martha Canapé snapped this photo of the grand entry during the Squamish Youth Powwow. Thanks for sharing, Martha. If you attend a powwow this weekend, don't forget about us and send us a photo to share at aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. On the east, Halifax rain and 27, Charlottetown 22 and sun. The Grand River 25 and rain, Anujiwak 12. Saskatchewan 27, Quebec City 26 and partly cloudy. Rain in Toronto at 28, Sault Ste. Marie 25. 25 in Sioux Lookout, Timmins 26. Smoky in Thompson at 22, Norway House 25. Sunny in Barons River at 30, Gimli 30. 26 in Yorkton, 21 in North Battleford. Meadow Lake 22, LaRonde, showers in 23. 19 in Grand Prairie, Fort McMurray 21. Lethbridge 24, Red Deer 18 in showers. Vancouver 22, Campbell River 23. Prince Rupert 17, Prince George 21. Beaver Creek 18, Mayo 19 in showers. Yellowknife 15, rain in Fort Simpson at 20. Sax Harbor 8, Colville Lake 12. Whale Cove 10, Arvey at 11. And Iqaluit 13, Arctic Bay 7 and sunny. Every summer, the Winnipeg Fringe Festival draws in performers from around the world to show off their stories. The Auntie Show, written by Joe McDonald, is the only Indigenous play that made it through the lottery this year. Journalism for Human Rights fellow Julia Ross now with some views on why that is.
This year, The Auntie Show is the only Indigenous-themed play theatergoers can experience at the Winnipeg Fringe Festival.
It's a little bit shocking, you know, for such a city with such a huge Indigenous population. We're the only Indigenous show.
Actress Tracy Nepanak has played many lead roles in the Canadian theater scene, and now she is one of the stars in The Auntie Show, written by Joe McDonald.
It's just a lot of fun. It's we were running around like chickens with our heads cut off, and it's all fun. Crazy scenarios.
Joe McDonald is also one of the leads in her play, the story of three aunties and their radio podcast.
In our culture, you know, we're about storytelling, and but instead of just telling, we're showing, and we've got some pretty interesting aunties up there.
Both Tracy and Joe hope to see more Indigenous theater talent come to the Winnipeg Fringe in the future and see ways of improving representation at the festival.
I wish there was more, you know, there's space, there's talent in the city, there is lots of stories. Would love to see more stories here from our different Indigenous communities.
With 2 sold-out performances so far, The Auntie Show highlights that Fringers are looking for more Indigenous content and more Indigenous people in the audience.
There's no like real etiquette that we know about. I guess the Indigenous community has kind of been left out in a way. If there was some invites and then, word of mouth.
Lucy Gervais, stand-up comedian and director of Late in Life Lesbian, a Fringe production touring from Montreal, spoke about Indigenous visibility at the Fringe.
We do land acknowledgements before every show, but I hear a lot of land acknowledgements. I'm not seeing a lot of Indigenous artists, and I think changes need to be made to elevate Indigenous artists across all fringes. But
Kelly Thornton is the artistic director of Manitoba Theatre Centre, the organization behind the Fringe. She believes the festival can do more to increase Indigenous participation.
In our ongoing journey of reconciliation here in Treaty 1, I think it's really important to say, yeah, we want Indigenous content, we want Indigenous audiences, and we want ultimately a blended audience because that's the makeup of Manitoba.
MTC's Pimateoan Creator Circle supports Indigenous storytellers learning to write for the stage.
Been talking about the possibility of maybe we hold 2 slots every year for Pimateoan. We've also, the bigger dream maybe is an Indigenous Fringe under the umbrella of the whole Winnipeg Fringe Festival, take over the Forks and make it an Indigenous Fringe Festival. We definitely see the need for it.
MTC's 2025 to 2026 season will showcase Pimateoan's Ronda Apatagan in their coming year, as well as Rubaboo, a Métis cabaret. The anti-show, Late in Life Lesbian, and others run at the Winnipeg Fringe Festival until Sunday, July 27th. Julia Ross, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Great story, Julia. Before we go, here's what our Kim Sullivan has prepared for us for tonight's Nouvelle Nationale, coming up in less than 2 minutes' time. Tanse, Kim.
Hey, Creason. Always nice to see you on a Friday. Opposition to Bill 97 continues to grow in Quebec, and our cameraman actually traveled north to talk to a group now blocking access to local sawmills. But I have to say, music is at the heart of tonight's show. We meet the creators of Meshtuk Guitars, speak with the organizer of Inunigamu Festival. It is a huge festival in a small community, as well as the organizer of Montreal's First Peoples Festival, celebrating its 35th anniversary. 6:30 Eastern tonight.
Thank you, Kim. And that's your evening newscast for this Friday, July 25th. APTN National News Daytime is back at 12 p.m. noon Winnipeg time next Monday. Please join us then. From all of us at APTN National News, thank you for watching and have a safe weekend with family. Excellent.